My name is Daniel Martin. I've finally been clean and sober for years in a row now, the longest ever.
Daniel had a history of a head injury, traumatic brain injury to be specific. Daniel also had a history of some substance use issues.
When I was a little kid, I lived in Derby, Kansas. I played pretty much every sport they had.
Around the time that we moved to a different town, Daniel met up with some kids in the neighborhood who were drinking and using drugs. So at that time, he started to lose interest in sports and gain interest in experimenting with different kinds of drugs and alcohol. From there, it just kind of went downhill. He, at a very young age, was in an outpatient drug and alcohol treatment class.
The problem with me and with many people is that when I get drunk, I do drugs too.
Fast forward to several years of in and out of outpatient and inpatient treatment, and I believe it was his 20th birthday, and he said, "Mom, I'm gonna have a baby."
I was at the hospital when she was born.
Daniel was very hands-on with his daughter, loved her, rocked her, fed her, bathed her. When Alexa was about 6 or 7, Daniel was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It was very difficult. He tried many different kinds of medication. We went back and forth to many doctors. He had many stays in psychiatric hospitals.
He had his brain injury one of his brain injuries several years ago. As a result of that, he had tried to work through the waiver services, but lack of providers, lack of individuals that could work with not only his brain injury issues, but also his mental health issues. It had created some gaps, and it just wasn't successful for him.
Daniel made his way to that hospital once again. He had been there more times than I could count. A couple of days later, I received a knock at the door. It was an officer. They were there to inform me that my son had jumped or fallen out of a third-story window of the hotel that he was in and landed on the top of his head. I was fearing the worst, but thankfully my son was still alive. So once he was able to the point where he could eat solid food, they moved him over to the psychiatric side of the unit.
They didn't have a location that he could discharge to where he would be safe and would meet his therapeutic needs, especially regarding his brain injury and his mental health issues.
It took us several months to finally find Brookhaven Hospital in Tulsa.
He was receiving brain injury rehab services at that location, but it makes some difficult transition discussions because he is in another state and trying to find an effective place for him to live and to support him back in Kansas.
Well, when I first got to Brookhaven, I did not like it, so I thought I was just kind of stuck.
He was not working his program or was not taking his medications regularly, and every month it just seemed that when we would get an update, nothing had really changed with him because he wasn't going to therapy, he wasn't attending his group therapy sessions, he just really wasn't making any progress.
I finally stopped fighting, and when I was moved to the other wing, it's a lot nicer. The people there, pretty much everyone I could tell was a good person. I can tell that those people there cared.
Then when he started making progress, the progress he was making was just absolutely exceptional. Every month it was exciting to go to the meetings because you didn't know what leaps and bounds that Daniel had made over the course of the last month.
I did what I was supposed to do. I tried to follow the rules completely. I even took pride in doing my chore.
He was taking his medications regularly, he was attending all of his groups, and he just started doing so fantastically. We knew that we had to work on getting him transitioned back to Kansas.
We, on our Aetna Better Health side, knew that he was going to do well. It was just finding and trying to bridge those gaps for him to make sure that he could even get back to the state of Kansas to be close to his daughter.
We started making referrals and outreach to different facilities and organizations that we thought could help Daniel. And we just started sending referral packets or having Brookhaven send referral packets out to those organizations. When we found Iroquois Center, we knew that it would be a really good fit because they not only had independent living in the community, but they also had support supports and services in place with therapists and support groups and recovery groups that he could continue to work with on his own there.
The Iroquois Center is good. It's a good place. The program here is good, but I just want to be in complete freedom. I think that's going to happen this year, later this year.
He's left the rehab. He is in an apartment. He is in the community. He's working with an employer. He works with his case manager. He works with his therapists. He's requested that he no longer have brain injury waiver services and just keep his Medicaid going. And eventually his goal is that he's going to have a full-time job and have his own insurance and not have to deal with us anymore.
My mom said it's a really nice apartment, and I was happy about that. And then I got here, and she was right. It was nice. And then the last about 5 months, I've been building and remodeling houses. What I like about my job is I don't do the same thing every single day. I mean, I still hear voices, but I've got a truck, I've got a cell phone. I get to talk to my daughter every day.
Aetna's mission is to meet the member where they're at. And that's what we did for Daniel Martin. He had a lot of needs, and our team worked diligently about finding a location back in Kansas where he could be close to his family, where he could be able to reside in his own home and have a job.
And that's truly the goal in our transitions when we're working with people. We want them to not have us. It's something that we really strive for.